Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the third in the series of this special online reflection in Yogic Silence, a transformative field. This evening's reflection, as has been the other two, is being hosted by the International Day of Yoga Committee at the United Nations in New York. And so as vice chair of the committee, I especially welcome you on this first day of spring, 2023. I feel, just breathing in that fresh air, it's a time for renewal, a time for new beginnings, for a fresh look on life, on living and lifestyle. And I think that yoga connects us to all three: life, an understanding of the being, the soul, the self, and the experience of who I am and who I belong to. Living in harmony with nature, in our relationships with all living beings, and with the elevated consciousness of being good and doing good. And lifestyle, that which generates holistic healing and well-being. Yoga as a practice has, of course, become very popular, but particularly in these two fields, in the fields of holistic healing and in healthy lifestyles, which we call as well-being. But this idea of yogic silence is to coming together as a collective, but coming together from an inner space of silence. So yoga also opens up within each and every one of us an inner space, which is like an inner field in which there are subtle dynamics of something that's changing. And we call that the subtle field of transformation. So these monthly sessions, which are of course online, invite us into this sacred inner space of the soul, which we call as the sweet spot of solitude, of serenity, and of stillness. And together, we as a collective will reflect together. We will experience the presence of each other, even though we're in our little boxes. And we will radiate vibrations of healing from our elevated consciousness, from our pure feelings, and from our good wishes. These vibrations, once created in this inner space of the soul, will emanate a certain kind of purity out into the world, because it's coming from an inner space that we call of self, of soul, from an elevated consciousness. And this also connects us to the source, connects us to the divine, it connects us to God. And then that radiates out into the atmosphere, and we then create our outer environments. So this evening, we are honoring two very significant observances with this practice of coming together collectively in this yogic space of silence. And so the two observances are connected to the United Nations month of March, which is honoring women, International Day of Women, 8 March, and the International Day of Happiness or Joy, which was yesterday, the 20th of March. You know, when I came onto the path of spirituality and I heard something from our founder father, Brahma Baba, we call him Brahma Baba, he said something that really thrilled me. And he said that when it was the time for the world to return to a state of order, God placed the urn of nectar, which was wisdom, on the heads of women. And then he called these women Shiv-Shaktis. Shiv-Shaktis literally mean that women became the conduits for God's power directly. And that Shakti, God's power, is a transformative power. And so this evening, to honor the International Day of Women and the focus on women for March, we are featuring the group that is called Magnolia Moonshot 2030. We will hear more about this group later as we go on in this evening. But let us first of all have a glimpse of the women of Magnolia Moonshot. Let's have a glimpse of their faces and let's listen to their feelings as they respond to this beautiful question: what brings you joy? Now, as you listen to each one, I'm sure what would be happening inside of you, because you are in a reflective space, is that what brings you as an individual joy will also emerge naturally. So I would say to you, let it emerge, let it flow, and feel free to share your joy in the chat as it emerges. So let's listen to what brings you joy from the Magnolia women.
What brings me joy is when a teen girl first discovers her passion and her path, and then helping her any way I can to achieve that.
What gives me joy is seeing others happy. And what I have learned about joy is just because you're feeling sorrowful, joy and sorrow can be in the same bowl. And always remember, you don't have to choose one or the other.
What gives me joy? Connection.
Gives me great joy is really connecting to the land and feeling the energy and the color, the beauty, and bringing it into my heart.
The sun on my face, being out in nature, that's what gives me joy.
When there's a flow, when people are walking and talking and laughing and what feels like a omnipresent flow, and you can almost see it, but you certainly can feel it.
What gives me joy is when I make a soul-to-soul connection with someone. That just opens up my heart and makes me feel so grateful.
Wasn't that so beautiful? You know, reflecting and sharing on joy. If you look at those, I call them spiritual sisters, or those women's faces, you could see the joy emanating from their eyes. And I was also thinking, you know, they were in Sedona when they did that. And so Sedona in Arizona. And so it is as if that wind that you were hearing became like natural music and kind of connected to the feelings they were expressing. And so it carried a very exotic experience, didn't it? And so again, this is an example of yogic silence, something that emerges from that pure space within, through our eyes, through our smile, through our features, and, you know, settle in harmony with the natural environment and the atmosphere. So thank you, Magnolia Moonshot sisters, for sharing your joy with us. And I hope you also captured your joy that emerged and write it in the chat. So the Magnolia Moonshot 2030, what are they and what do they represent? So I will give you a little bit of what I felt when I read up about them, moved me a lot. I know some of these women very well and I've connected to them. But when I read about the purpose of their organization, I was really moved by it. And so what they do is that they serve to connect networks of women leaders who are urgently addressing the climate crisis. So they're amplifying the collective ability of women so that this ability can have a positive impact, particularly in climate crisis, but they also go beyond the climate crisis. They also connect to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the agenda. But what is so significant about this group is that they have 8 guiding principles that they work with. And that for me is what makes them an organization that I'm so proud to bring to all of us this evening, particularly focusing on how women work with guiding principles and how these principles connect them to their spirituality. So the 8 guiding principles that they work with is 1, they address the ecological and the socio-economic and spiritual dimensions of the climate crisis. They are a force for connection and collaboration. They cross-pollinate each other's work. There is that deep cooperation. They build on existing commitments and actions. They celebrate the power of dignity, of empathy, of trust, of vulnerability, of innovation and urgency. This one I like very much. They have the courage to speak the truth. They embody love by denouncing sexism, racism, or any form of exclusion or supremacy. And they leave no one behind. Now that's very much connected to the UN principles, leaving no one behind for the SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals. So we have invited one of the Magnolia sisters or women to be our inspirational speaker this evening. So Jacqueline Cambata is a member of the Magnolia Moonshot 2030, and she will be our inspirational presenter. I have known Jacqui for many years, and I can tell you that Jacqui is one of those women that our founder father described. She is one who that urn was put on her head, the urn of wisdom was put on her head. It was put in her heart, and it was put on her hands. God placed his wisdom in her, on her head, in her heart, and in her hands. She's a social entrepreneur whose purpose in life and work is to integrate the spiritual with the secular, weaving a tapestry with threads of gender equality, no poverty, and of course, education, which I would call lifelong learning. Actually, the Magnolia Moonshot women weave the tapestry with threads of the UN Sustainable Development Goals and targets. So, it's a very subtle thing they're doing with their 8 guiding principles. And so I would say with someone like Jacqui in their midst, there is promise for 2030, because that's the target that the UN has set for a lot of things to change through the Sustainable Development Goals. So let's listen to Jacqui and her inspiring words.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Cambata, and I'm delighted to be with you today. I'd like to introduce Magnolia Moonshot 2030 to you on this International Day of Women and Happiness. Magnolia Moonshot 2030 was founded in 2019 to engage and connect women leaders who are addressing issues surrounding equity and inequality, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and climate justice. We recently had our first retreat since COVID, so it had been 3 years since we were together. And although we got together on Zoom quite frequently, as you all know, it's not the same as being in person. The 3-day retreat was designed by a few of us, and we deliberately had a cadence of being and doing. So the first day, in fact, was organized around just being with each other, having silence, having reflection. And of course, being with such an amazing group of women, we often go towards outcomes or doing. And indeed, that's what happened on this particular afternoon. There was a quick fire sort of intellectual discussion, and it really impacted me somatically. I really wanted to make an effort to stay in this reflective mode. So what happens when we go from a place of reflection to discussion? Discussion comes from a root word meaning percussion. And so I spoke up and interjected myself into the discussion. I'm often the canary in the coal mine in circumstances such as this. And I illustrated the difference between discussion and dialogue, where we are more present with each other, where the process slows down, where we are more mindful, where we do not initiate our thoughts before the next person is finished speaking, but we listen with a different level of curiosity and humility. And what that does, I find, is it creates a sacred space in the room, and it allows for the presence of God. You know, it's interesting, the notion of dialogue was differentiated and coined by David Bohm, who had a rather intensive encounter with an Indian philosopher by the name of Krishnamurti. And they really wanted this reflective aspect of being together to emerge, the sense of presence to guide our actions and thus our thoughts. And oftentimes this would be the precursor to our being together differently in elevated consciousness. I had a mentor and a powerhouse of the spiritual soul by the name of Jacqui, who used to tell us that every time you walk into a room, it is your responsibility to elevate the consciousness of that room. And how do we do that except to be in our own internal silence, to have that sense of presence? So I'd like to share with you an experience that I had, that I think it was my first recollection of having a journey, if you will, of elevated consciousness. I was 7 years old, and we were in central India. I was with my parents. We had a cottage there in Rocky Coal. And in this little village, my father had built a schoolhouse for the children. And that morning, it was my duty to hand out candy to each child. And as they approached me, I could distinctly tell that there was such a disparity of income. These children had no shoes. They had tattered clothes. But what they did have is a depth of interaction I will never forget. They approached me with their eyes gleaming, smiling broadly, and with their little namastes. I felt it deep inside my soul that they brought a sense of joy to my experience with them. And I felt this with child after child after child. And I wondered what it was that shifted for me that day. And it was this experience of joy that wasn't attached to an outcome. It wasn't attached to materialism. It was just the generosity of their soul. And it created a sense of awe in me. And since that moment, I have been in search of what brings a sense of joy and happiness and awe into the room. And with it, a sense of sacred space and a sense of God being present. You know, I recently read a book by Dasher Keltner called Awe. And he talks about how when in communities, when we have this sense of compassion and gratitude, how these communities thrive. And he also talks about the human biological reaction to the feelings of awe, that there are cytokines in the body that are influenced by awe and consequently lower inflammation in the body. So these moments of awe spun together elevate our consciousness and provide antidotes to the headwinds of life on this precious Mother Earth at this time. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce to you a guided meditation. It is facilitated by Arielle Hecht, and Arielle will guide you through a gorgeous reflection on joy. Her voice always takes me to a deep place of silence. Arielle is definitely an earth angel. May you be elevated by Arielle.
Welcome to this meditation on women and happiness and our deep spiritual connection. How as women we are like flowers, and we bloom in the light and the sunshine of God, the Divine's love. Let's begin by taking a few moments to breathe and relax and soften. Feeling a wave of peace washing over your entire being. And allowing yourself this time to turn inwards, to bring your attention to your inner world. As if there is a magnet in your heart pulling all of your energy inwards, back inside. And as you settle in, you feel your body relax more and more. You feel your mind relax. And just as beneath the surface of the ocean is a deep silence, in the same way as you delve into the deep waters of yourself, you find yourself coming to a deeper and deeper silence and stillness. A sanctuary within yourself. And as you feel the sweetness of your inner world, becoming aware of the star, the point of light, consciousness, the soul, who you are, resting behind your eyes, glowing, radiant being. And becoming aware that there is a glowing light emanating from your heart, expressing and emanating the love of you, the soul. And in your heart is a golden flower. The flower of your love. The spiritual fragrance that you emit into this world with your unique virtues and qualities that only you share in the way you do. Aware of your heart and aware of your being. Aware of your body and your connection to the earth. Feeling now your connection to the divine, who is like a spiritual sun. And this flower in your heart blooms and is nourished by the light of the spiritual sun, the divine. And so allowing the flower in your heart to bathe in the light of God's love, like radiant sunshine shining upon you. And as this light pours in, there is a joy that begins to bloom and grow and be illumined within you. A joy that is unconditional and pure. And you, the spiritual rose, are simply receiving the light of the one who loves you forever. And in the light of this love, any wounds or bruises or tears in that flower, in the heart, are being healed, reconciled. And this flower slowly returning to its purest state. And all you have to do is receive. Nothing to make happen, nothing to improve upon, just to receive the light of God's love into your heart, and to allow the blooming of joy. Joy in and of itself, pure joy, the joy that comes from our connection to our beloved, the divine. And this light and this joy is filling you. And your heart is being restored to its full brightness. The flower is blossoming. And in this sanctuary of your spiritual connection, is complete peace. A peace that passeth all understanding, the peace of God. And now you take a good look at this flower. What does it look like now that it's been filled, renewed with the light of the spiritual sun? Feel how this flower is planted, firmly grounded lovingly into the earth. That you are held by Mother Earth, and you are illumined by the Supreme, Father, the Beloved, the One. And so you become this bridge of spirit and matter, an instrument for great illumination in our world. And any time you feel to return to this meditation, this practice of refilling the light of your heart, allowing your inner flower to be illumined, filled, to feel the depths of silence in your inner world and your connection to the ground, to the earth, to give you strength on your journey. The joy of God is my strength. As women, we have this right, this power in our connection to the One. May every blessing be upon you as you continue to take the divine steps that only you can take in our world. Thank you for your divine presence. Om Shanti.
Yesterday was the first day of spring, new beginnings, warmer and longer days. Gardens are blooming. Today is also the Zoroastrian New Year. We Parsis celebrate what is known as Nowruz. It's a very auspicious day for us. It also happens to be the International Day of Happiness. I'd like to leave you with an excerpt from a poem written by John O'Donohue, and it is a blessing. May the fragrance of a breathing meadow refresh your heart and remind you you are a child of Earth. Thank you.
Wasn't that so beautiful? My gosh, it's so difficult to come back into words. It was very profound. So thank you, Jacqui, for your inspiring words and for that beautiful blessing. And thank you, Arielle. I know that you're on this evening for that profound meditation. Each word that you spoke, actually, it was like that sunflower turning our faces toward the sun. It was a very deep and profound reflection. And I'm sure with the power of us all doing it together, we have made our world a better place. And thank you all the Magnolia women for coming on this evening and for being with us. And so in closing, I'd like to return to this question. What brings you joy? So Julia, would you like to share with us what brings you joy for a very short time, and maybe share a little bit of what came in to the chat? Just a few of them.
Yes, good evening, everyone. What a really, really beautiful meditation. I really enjoyed it. And what brings me joy? I think it's beauty. Beauty brings me joy, and also innocence, the innocence of light in a child's eyes, and also in a dog's wagging tail as he or she comes to greet you. So the beautiful innocence, and I think it comes from purity. So that's what brings me joy. And we do have some lovely experiences here. One of them, these are from the chat. I experienced joy as I watched someone blossom and become who they really are, separate from what the world or others see and think that they are. And another one, happiness from within brings me joy, innate state of purity, diving deep into silence and spending time in nature. I experience joy when I wake up every morning and sit with the Supreme Father in gratitude and open my heart to him. In return, he fills me with love, light, and intoxication. And someone else said his presence. I think God's presence brings them joy. God's love brings me joy. The divine heart flowing freely with pure love and connecting with all oneness. And someone thanking for a beautiful meditation. Grateful heart for all the blessings. Beauty that you've created for all of us. Beautiful, grateful. Giving happiness to others and being close to nature, experiencing joy when I observe innocence and purity too, when I bring a smile to others, walking in nature, experiencing joy when I feel the movement of air on my skin and going for a walk in nature. So these are some of the beautiful experiences of joy that we all have. Yeah, thank you.
And so everything beautiful, they say, comes to an end, but there's no end, right? There's always a beginning. There's no end without a beginning. And I know, Jacqui, you're on, so I was wondering whether we can spotlight you to just wave to everyone, because I really deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate you and the members of I call you the Magnolia Sisters, and for really cooperating with us and making this such a meaningful meditation this evening. And I know that many, many, many more will be viewing this video. And I just want you to have the last word before the save the date and the thank you. Because I know we're already at the end of the session. So Jacqui, wave and say something in closing.
Hi, everyone. It's really such a privilege to be with you tonight, and I'm really grateful to Gayatri and Arielle and Julia, and it is I think it's a beautiful time to have this session when we think about springtime, when we think about new beginnings, when we think about the joy that comes from inside when we transition into a new cycle on this precious planet Earth of ours. So it's been my blessing to be with all of you, and I wish you a very, very happy journey.
Thank you, Jacqui. And that beautiful voice for the meditation, Arielle. Arielle, let's spotlight you, and you wave and maybe say something to us all. Could you put your hand up so they would know?
So beautiful to be with you all and share in the divinity of our connection to God and the joy and the bliss and the peace that brings, and very much so the waves of peace that move through the entire world, you know, just in our space, from our space here together. So thank you for your presence.
And thank you, Arielle. Thank you so much. And so now, in the final closing, we'd like to invite you to save the date for April, and it is going to be on love and conscience. On April 5th, it's the International Day of Conscience that the UN celebrates. So we're going to have this very heavy duty topic of conscience be experienced through music, through meditation, and through magic. And Paul Laftenegger will be with us for that, and he's going to create it, and he's going to make it something very, very beautiful. So it's the 18th of April, Tuesday, and it's going to be from 6:30 to 7:15. And so that's it for me. And I don't think I ever told you my name, but I hope you saw it from my little square. I am Gayatri, and my last name is Narayan, but most of you know me by Gayatri. And I am the co-chair of the International Day of Yoga Committee at the UN, but I also represent the Brahma Kumaris at the UN. So love from my heart and connection from soul to soul. So we'll close now, and I'll say good night. I'll say Om Shanti. I'll say keep sharing the joy, keep touching others' hearts with the joy in your heart through your eyes and your smile.
Is the prelatin is going to be the same link?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Shanti.